Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
There are moments in a man's life when time doesn't slow down. It stops. Not in awe, not in fear, but in revelation. We were sitting at the dining table. It was late. The candles had burned down to stubby wax puddles, and the wine she liked, dry, expensive, imported, sat half-drunk in her glass. My food was cold. I hadn't touched it. I'd cooked, cleaned, set everything out. I'd done it to keep the peace. She was on her phone. Of course she was. And I had just asked her something simple. Something small. Hey, are we okay? Her eyes didn't leave the screen. She took a slow sip from her glass, swallowed, and then set it down with precision. Still not looking at me. We're fine, she said flatly. I waited, hoping she'd look up. Hoping she'd offer something. A smile, a touch, a sigh. Anything. Instead, she finally lifted her eyes, pinned me with that gaze she reserved for moments she felt powerful or bored. Then she said it, plain, unsmiling. You have two choices, submit or suffer. I blinked. Thought maybe I misheard. Sorry what? She didn't repeat it. Just leaned back and crossed her arms like a queen on her throne. You heard me. I'm done coddling you. Either do things my way or live with the consequences. I stared at her, mouth half open. She didn't laugh. Didn't soften. It wasn't a joke. I felt it right then. Not rage, not fear, but something else. Stillness. The kind you feel when your gut recognizes something your heart hasn't caught up to yet. This wasn't a fight. This was a declaration of war. She looked past me, already losing interest. Picked up her phone again. You're too emotional, she added with a little shrug. If you can't handle a strong woman, maybe you're not a real man. That was her thing lately. Testing, prodding, issuing commands instead of having conversations. Her tone had changed gradually over the years, until control wasn't just her habit. It was her language. She didn't want a partner. She wanted a subordinate. And she didn't even feel the need to hide it anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on the edge of the bed, fully clothed, staring at the far wall. Her silhouette shifted beneath the sheets. She had fallen asleep within minutes, like the day hadn't ended in verbal warfare. But I couldn't shut my eyes. Couldn't shake the weight of those four words. Submit or suffer. The air in the room felt different now. Heavy, like I had been handed a silent death sentence and was expected to thank her for it. I thought back, tried to remember the last time she had spoken to me with love instead of strategy. When did it change? Had I missed the tipping point? Or had it been this way for longer than I'd dared to admit? I remembered the first time I turned down a job promotion because she didn't want to relocate. I remembered when I sold my motorcycle, something I loved, because she claimed it made me look unstable. I remembered her laughing when I once cried after my dad passed, and how she told me, men who cry can't lead anything. And I'd absorbed it. Every time. Because I loved her. Because I believed marriage was about sacrifice. But looking back now, I didn't sacrifice for love. I surrendered to control. I got up before the sun and took a shower longer than usual. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to feel something. Water pressure. Steam. The reminder that I still existed in this body, still had agency. When I stepped out, she was awake, scrolling her phone in bed. She didn't look up. Didn't say good morning. Didn't ask why I had left the bed. That was the moment I knew. We weren't lovers anymore. We weren't partners. We weren't even friends. I was a subject, and she had crowned herself queen. But that was okay. Because the game she thought she was playing, it was already over. She just didn't know it yet. It's strange, the things your mind replays when you're waking up from a long lie. Not just the big betrayals, but the small, quiet ones. The kind you forgive too easily because they come wrapped in a smile or a kiss. Or because you don't want to rock the boat. Now that I'd heard her say it, submit or suffer, it was like every moment I had dismissed as normal came roaring back, wearing its true face. I had this old Dodge. Nothing flashy, but it was mine. I'd saved for it, fixed it up myself. It was the kind of car you wash by hand because it means something to you. When we got married, she hated it. It's loud, she said. Makes you look like some kind of teenage burnout. You're not in high school anymore, you know. I laughed at the time, thought she was teasing. 2 weeks later, she convinced me to trade it in. Said it wasn't family-friendly. I let it go. She got the SUV she wanted. I started biking to work some days to save on gas. Back then, I told myself it was compromise. Now I know better. I got offered a regional management position. Better pay, full relocation package, and a real shot at moving up in the company. She barely let me finish my sentence. So, you're saying I'd have to quit my job and move away from everyone I know so you can sit in an office all day? I paused. No, I mean we could talk about it. Maybe visit the area, feel it out. She cut me off. Forget it. I'm not starting over because you got a little raise. She didn't say congratulations. Not once. I turned the offer down the next day. She told her friends. He didn't want the extra stress. This one was harder to admit to myself. There was a time we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Back when touches meant something. When she reached for me without obligation. But over the years, it changed. First it was the late nights. The headaches. The complaints that I was needy. Then the comments started. You always want something. God, can't you just hold me without expecting anything? You're worse than a teenager. Eventually, I stopped trying. Stopped reaching. Stopped hoping. It wasn't rejection anymore. It was routine. At her sister's birthday dinner, someone asked how we met. Before I could speak, she cut in. I caught him looking at me like a lost puppy. I felt bad for him. Everyone laughed. I smiled too. But it stung. Later that night, when I brought it up, she rolled her eyes. Oh, don't be sensitive. You're lucky I gave you the time of day. And maybe she was right. That's how I felt back then. Lucky. Lucky. That word echoed in my mind now. Twisted, warped. Like I was some starving stray who should have been grateful to be tossed scraps. But I wasn't starving. Not anymore. Now I was awake. I began to realize something else in those flashbacks. Every compromise I made had cost me something small. A dream. A boundary. A little piece of self-respect. And every time I gave a little more, she demanded more still. She didn't want partnership. She wanted dominance, disguised as confidence. And the worst part? She actually believed she had earned it. Earned the right to tell me how high to jump. Earned the right to weaponize affection, to ridicule, to threaten. Submit or suffer. It wasn't a warning. It was a pattern. One I had tolerated far too long. But not anymore. The man she built her throne on? He was already stepping off the platform. Silently. No announcement. No fireworks. But when I left it behind, when I stopped carrying the weight, she'd feel it. Every inch of it. And for the first time, I wouldn't feel guilty. There's a point where you stop reacting and start planning. I wasn't interested in arguments anymore. Not in tears, guilt trips, or whatever performance she might deliver if I told her what I was thinking. No, she wanted me to submit or suffer. So I decided to show her what my version of not submitting looked like. It started small. First, I changed all my account passwords, email, phone, cloud storage. She never bothered checking, but I wasn't taking chances. Control wasn't just about money or sex in our marriage. It was about access. The power to monitor. To twist details into shame. I had nothing to hide anymore, but I wasn't leaving the door unlocked either. Next came the finances. I opened a new bank account under my name only. Different institution, different branch. I didn't move everything, not at once. Just small amounts. Round numbers that wouldn't raise alarms. A quiet exit strategy, disguised as routine budgeting. Then I checked our credit cards. Every one tied to my income. Canceled or closed. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough that by the time she noticed, the damage would already be done, or protected, depending on your perspective. At home, I kept playing the part. Still cooked dinner. Still did laundry. Still smiled when her friends came over and she paraded me like some prop. But inside, the countdown had already started. I also began documenting everything. Her threats. Her insults. Her manipulations. I recorded audio when she was in one of her moods. When she'd ran about how everything good in your life came from me. Or how she could ruin me if I ever left. I saved screenshots of texts, her reminders of what I owed her, what I was allowed to do. Because I knew the moment I stepped out of this house, she'd go from conqueror to victim in a heartbeat. And I wasn't going to be unarmed when that happened. Then I booked an appointment with a lawyer. A quiet, unassuming office on the other side of town. She never went near that area, said it was beneath her. Perfect. The attorney listened while I spoke. Calmly. No drama. Just facts. He didn't blink when I told him the phrase that broke me. Submit or suffer. His expression changed only slightly. Like a surgeon recognizing terminal rot beneath the skin. We reviewed everything. Assets, joint property, liabilities, digital evidence. And together, we began building my escape. In the meantime, I began detaching emotionally. Stopped responding to jabs. Stopped justifying myself. When she said something cruel, I just nodded. When she mocked my quietness, I smiled. That confused her more than anything. Why are you so weird lately? She snapped one night when I barely reacted to one of her usual verbal grenades. I just shrugged. Nothing's wrong. Everything's exactly as you said it is. She smirked like she'd won. Let her. Let her believe the illusion a little longer. It would make the reality hit harder. There was one final step. I called my old friend Alex. We hadn't talked much since she pushed me to cut off non-serious people from my life, people who didn't elevate our brand, whatever the hell that meant. But Alex had been a brother to me before she'd ever walked into the picture. I told him everything, and he didn't say much at first, just breathed out slowly and said, "Took you long enough, man." Then he offered me something simple, a spare room, no strings, no judgment, just a place to land when it was time. That night, lying next to her in bed, her back turned, body cold as usual, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself. Not much longer. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't afraid. I was clear. And there's a kind of quiet power and clarity that control freaks like her never see coming. Some people only notice what you did for them after you stop doing it. She didn't notice the first few cracks. When I stopped reminding her about her car insurance renewal, she shrugged it off. When I forgot to refill her vitamin supplements, the expensive imported ones she always ordered through my accounts, she sighed and muttered something about incompetence. When she needed help setting up her work-from-home presentation, and I said, "I'm sure you'll figure it out," her head turned slightly. Confused, but not concerned. Not yet. The real shift happened on a Friday night. She had invited some people over. A few coworkers. One of her social climbing friends who always made backhanded compliments about our home. I hadn't asked who was coming. I didn't ask what she wanted me to wear. I didn't care. I just set out drinks, kept the living room clean, and stayed polite. The old me would have fussed, tried to be the charming husband she could parade around. The one who laughed at her jokes, even the ones aimed at me. But not that night. That night, I was still. Detached. And she noticed. "Can I talk to you in the kitchen for a sec?" she hissed during a lull in conversation. I followed. She shut the door behind us a little too hard. "What the hell's wrong with you?" she snapped. "Nothing," I replied calmly. "You're acting weird. Why are you being so distant?" I looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small under her glare. "I'm just doing what you asked," I said. She blinked. "What?" I smiled, not out of smugness, but out of peace. "You told me to submit or suffer. So I've chosen to let go." She stared at me, mouth slightly open. The silence between us stretched until her expression twisted into a sneer. "Oh, give me a break. You're trying to guilt-trip me now." I didn't respond. Didn't argue. Just walked back out to the living room and topped off a guest wine glass like nothing had happened. Later that night, as she sat cross-legged on the bed scrolling through her phone, I sat at the desk nearby packing a small black bag. Laptop. A few clothes. Personal documents I'd quietly removed from the shared drawer. She looked up. "What are you doing?" "Just getting some space," I said, zipping the bag. "Where are you going?" "A friend's." "Alex." Her laugh was sharp, but cracked slightly at the end. "Oh, now you need a man cave to run to? Don't be so dramatic." "I'm not," I said, slinging the strap over my shoulder. "This isn't drama. This is me taking your advice." She stood up now, arms crossed. "So you're just walking out?" "Just like that." "I'm not walking out of a marriage," I said, holding her gaze. "I'm walking out of a dictatorship." Her jaw clenched, but she didn't respond. And for the first time, I didn't feel the silence. I walked past her, calm and quiet, the way someone walks out of a building that's already collapsing. Outside, the night was cool. I didn't feel euphoric. Didn't feel righteous. Just free. Not in a loud, movie scene kind of way, but in that deep, cellular way your body reacts when it realizes the danger has finally passed. She texted an hour later. "Really? You're going to be this childish?" I didn't respond. A second message came. "We'll see how long you last out there on your own." But the thing she didn't understand was I hadn't been on my own until now. I'd been captive, shackled to a queen who only knew how to rule, not love. Now I was finally alone, and it felt like oxygen. The thing about ultimatums is, you better be damn sure the other person can't live without you. Because when they can, you don't just lose the argument, you lose everything. The first trimmer came just 3 days after I left. She tried to use the joint credit card for a hair appointment. Declined. Then again for a skincare order she made monthly without thinking. Declined. She texted me that night, just one word. Seriously. No, hi. No, how are you? Just a cold reminder that she was used to access. I didn't respond. Then came the work questions. Alex had heard from a mutual friend. Her office had started whispering. Apparently, she mentioned me during a team lunch and said, "He's having a little tantrum. He'll be back." But one of the newer hires, who didn't know our dynamic, asked casually, "Wait, your husband left? Why?" She stammered, then waved it off. But people started paying attention. I wasn't the only one who noticed how she spoke to people. Without me around, her tone, always sharp, always dismissive, didn't have a buffer anymore. By the end of the week, 2 coworkers had unfollowed her on social media. Small things. But she noticed. Back at the house, she called. Blocked number. I answered out of curiosity. Her voice was tight, pretending to be casual. "I don't know what this little performance is supposed to be, but you've made your point. Come home, and we'll talk like adults." I paused, then said, "We never talk like adults. We just obeyed your rules." Click. The lawyer filed the paperwork the following Monday. Clean. Precise. Everything documented. The recordings, the threats, the email she once sent calling me an investment that better perform, all neatly compiled. The divorce was filed with costs. It startled her. Not because she cared about saving the marriage, but because I had weaponized the one thing she thought only she controlled. Narrative. Now it was on paper. Abuse. Manipulation. Financial exploitation. She had spent years painting herself as the accomplished, composed professional wife. Now there was a legal record that told another story. I didn't gloat, didn't post anything, but the silence itself made her spiral. Her friends stopped calling as often. The ones she used to brag to started going quiet when she changed subjects. Her girls' night photos dried up. Her captions got vague. People noticed. Then came the final straw. She tried to renew the lease on her luxury SUV. But I had already removed my name from the co-sign and notified the dealer of the pending divorce proceedings. When they asked for her solo financials, she couldn't qualify. The SUV was repossessed a week later. Alex sent me a photo. He'd spotted it at the dealership lot, already being washed for resale. The Queen's Chariot? Gone. She sent one last message. Long, emotional. Rambling. I didn't mean what I said like that. I was trying to motivate you. You always said I was the strong one. I thought if I pushed, you'd step up. I didn't expect you to give up on us. I read it in silence. She still didn't understand. She thought I left because I was weak. No. I left because I had finally become strong enough not to need her approval. I waited a full day before responding. Just one line. You told me to submit or suffer. You never imagined I'd choose neither. Peace doesn't feel like victory. Not at first. It feels foreign. Like standing in a quiet house after years of walking on eggshells. No tension in the walls. No careful words. No countdown to the next ambush. Just silence. And yourself. The divorce wasn't contested. I think once the paperwork hit her, once the attorney's language made it clear I wasn't bluffing, she realized the power she'd hoarded had vanished. Her only leverage me was walking away without a backward glance. She signed everything. Quickly. No apology. No concession speech. Just a signature at the bottom of her own undoing. The last time I saw her in person was at the legal office, neutral ground, cold air, and 2 pins on the table. She looked different. Not worse, not unkempt, but rattled. Fragile. The mask she used to wear, composure, sarcasm, control, it didn't sit right anymore. She stared at me, searching for something. Maybe regret. Maybe hope. Maybe weakness. I gave her none of it. Not to be cruel, but because there was nothing left to give.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.